Hello, my name is Jay Burney, and I'm the U.S. chair of the Birds on Niagara International Bird Festival. We're going to be talking about that festival and the incredible birding that you get in the Niagara River Strait region of Ontario and Western New York. So let's get right to the presentation. So Birds of the Niagara International Birding Festival, winter birding on the Niagara, North America's destination for gulls and waterfowl. I know that's a big brag here, but that's what we have. A couple of other speakers tonight, Marcy Jacqueline, who is a Canadian lifelong birder on the Canadian shore, will give us perspective on what Canadian birding in the winter is like, especially along the river and some other places that are nearby. And Tom Kerr, who is a Buffalo Audubon representative, who's a great bird watcher and naturalist, and will tell you a lot about, I don't know, some of the gulls here. We have a lot of birds here. The picture on the left is gulls on the rocks above Niagara Falls. Sometimes we get 10,000 of these gulls sitting on the rocks, and it can be very beautiful. On the right, we have what's called a squabble of Bonaparte's gulls. Bonaparte's gulls are interesting birds. They come from the boreal forests of the far north. They come through here in migration, November, December, January, February, incredible numbers. Sometimes as many as 10 to 20% of their entire global population can be found here in the winter. They're very fun to watch. They're very vocal. They're very social, and they're always feeding and diving for fish. They're incredible divers, great birds to watch. We're located in the Great Lakes. The Niagara River Strait runs from Lake Erie to Lake Ontario, and right in the middle, it's bisected by Niagara Falls. We have a lot of urban areas, including Buffalo and the city of Niagara Falls, both Canada and the US. It's a 32-mile or so corridor, 60 kilometers. It's international. We're right on the border. We have the Niagara River Corridor, globally significant, important bird area. And we have the Ramsar International Wetlands of Significance. These are both conservation designations that help to spread the word about our world-class biodiversity. We have so many incredible things here: birds, fish, insects, native plants. We also have lots of threats. You can find out more about this on our website, www.birdsontheniagara.org. And so we have this festival coming up the 12th, 13th, and 14th of February. It's the third annual Birds in the Niagara International Bird Festival. It's international. We think this is the only international festival in North America. If we're wrong, let us know. The programs are designed to educate, inform, and create conservation strategies on both sides of the border. That's important. We really want to build some sort of conservation ethic in people's heads, and we use the birds to help share the abundance of the beauty of nature that we have here and the ecological integrity. And of course, celebrating those birds and our biodiversity. We do this on Valentine's Day weekend. This is the third year we've done that, and it's winter in the Niagara. We do it on Valentine's Day weekend because many of our birds, especially our waterfowl, are in breeding plumage. You can see birds dancing and preening and calling to each other, and just in breeding behavior, courtship behavior. And so we strive to bring the romance to birding with our event. And we pose to make funny pictures in front of hearts. This is Marcy, who's going to speak to you soon. And on the right is Carrie Kennedy, who's the Canada chair of Birds on the Niagara. We also try to have fun. This is from our meet and greet last year. We had it in person. We're not doing it this year. We're doing it virtually this year. But, we put costumes on. We play games. We might drink a little beer. This year's event is almost all virtual. There's no registration. There's no sign up, but you can sign up for our mailing list. Go to our website, find out more about all of this. I say almost because despite the fact that the international border remains closed due to the pandemic, there are some localized events and venues, including at Niagara Falls State Park on the US side, New York. Niagara Falls is the oldest state park in the United States. So there you can take an elevator down behind the falls for a very wintry and close-up encounter with the birds at the base of Niagara Falls. That's an amazing experience to be down there in the middle of the winter behind Niagara Falls, and it's cold and it's icy. We'd hoped also to have some bird watching charter boats on the river this year. That's an exhilarating experience. You can imagine ice flows, and it's just crazy, but we're not gonna be able to do it this year because of the pandemic. Maybe next year. We have great speakers. Drew Lanham is a distinguished professor of wildlife ecology at Clemson. He's a National Audubon board member. He's well-known, contributed to BirdNote. As an African-American man, his focus is on the ecology of songbirds and the intersections of race, place, and conservation with wild birds as the conduit for understanding. His book, The Home Place, Memoirs of a Colored Man's Love Affair with Nature, transforms our cultural perceptions of the conservation community and the impacts of race relationships in growing awareness and opportunities of working together as a species to help enjoy and protect the natural world. Lanham has been an important spokesperson for the African-American conservation and birding experience. His 2013 essay and subsequent video, 9 Rules for the Black Bird Watcher, have been transformational in terms of engaging social issues across racial lines. You can find that article and the video on our website. We have a page for Drew Lanham. In 2020, this past year, and during intensive Black Lives Matters protests all across America and other countries, Lanham spoke out about, for instance, Christian Cooper, who was a New York City Audubon leader who had a terrible racist incident in Central Park while bird watching, and that he's a well-known bird watcher in Central Park. Lanham's leadership helped create Black Birders Week in May and June of 2020, which is a celebration that Birds in the Niagara was proud to participate in, and you may have participated in it also. Another speaker is Tim Beatley. He's the Teresa Hines Professor of Sustainable Communities, the Department of Urban and Environmental Planning, School of Architecture at the University of Virginia. He is internationally recognized as a sustainable city researcher and writer. He focuses on creative strategies that cities can use to reduce their ecological footprints and become livable and equitable places. The Bird-Friendly and Biophilic City is his new book, integrating safe natural habitats into urban design and planning. He's the author of many books on resiliency, including Planning for Coastal Resiliency, Biophilic Cities, and is the founder of the Biophilia Network. You can find more information about him and listen to his talk on our website. We're going to start a campaign to make more conservation stewardship concepts and planning concepts in the Niagara River corridor. And these two speakers and some of our other speakers are going to help us do that. FLAP Canada, Fatal Light Awareness Program, you may have heard of it. They're internationally famous for developing zoning codes and other guidelines to make buildings and communities and cities bird safe. They're going to be here, give us a wonderful talk. And we have a lot of urban areas in the Niagara River corridor, Buffalo, Niagara Falls, Ontario, and Niagara Falls, New York. A lot of great partners, a lot of great programs. We hope you can come and see them. Go to our website, get the schedule, check in during the event, check in after the event. You can still see them. They'll be archived. And we're going to have an auction also, a silent auction on the meet and greet night on Friday night. Niagara River Greenway, which is an organization that's appointed by the state of New York to create conservation planning and funding in the Niagara River Greenway, was one of our founding partners and really helped us get established 3 years ago. And also, of course, the Buffalo Audubon Society is our primary not-for-profit group that's organizing and running this festival. Lots of great birds on the Niagara River. Straight, this is a little gull. Look at all those gulls behind it. These are just so much fun to watch. Lots of different gulls on the river. Tom is going to talk with you about it in a bit. And these are all here. These are, I was out today birding and I saw several of these species. We also have things like snowy owls that come down here from the north, and loons, and the tundra swans, which are on the bottom right, are just spectacular. I had a raft of 300 of them on the river a couple of days ago. So our event, Birds in the Niagara International Festival. Again, we think it's the only international bird festival in North America. If you know of another one, let us know. But it's international. We reach our hands across the border, and it's wonderful. We have great partners on both the Canada and the US side, and hope you can join us. Go to our website, birdsintheniagara.org. And now our next speaker, Marcy Jacqueline.
Thanks, Jay. I'm Marcy Jacqueline, as Jay was saying, and I'm here to just give you a quick tour of some birding on the Canadian side, including Niagara. Okay, so yeah, just greetings from the Canadian side, and here I am birding at a location called Adam Beck along the Niagara River, and I'm looking at the U.S. side, so you can see how close we are actually to the American side. And this is one of our hot spots where we can watch for gulls, in particular the white-winged gulls like Iceland Gull and Glacier Gull. It's a different perspective because we're actually looking down onto the gulls. So we're seeing the top side of the gulls most of the time. And here's just what I'm talking about. So you can see we share the shoreline all the way along from Lake Ontario to Lake Erie on the Niagara River. But there's many other locations in Niagara that are quite good. The Lake Ontario shoreline in the winter can be very productive in terms of eiders and scoters and all sorts of different ducks and gulls, as well as Lake Erie. So lots of opportunity to see lots of really great gulls on the Ontario side too. And we're missing our American friends right now. So here is above the falls, just so you can see what it looks like when in the winter. It can be cold, but a lot of this ice formation you can see is actually from the mist of the falls. So we're right above the falls, and you can see that the current is quite rapid at that point too. So it creates a really good habitat for gulls to feed, and some ducks as well. And these are just a few pictures of some of the gulls that you might see. Lesser blackback. This fall we had a mew gull, which was a 2-day wonder, but still pretty exciting. In the past, we've had black-headed gulls, and this fall I had this beautiful black-legged kittiwake, and that was above the falls. So lots of opportunities to see birds close up, which is really nice, and study them. And don't forget the ducks, because this is when in the winter when they come into breeding plumage, so they can look really spectacular, and you can get some really nice close-up looks of birds like this hooded merganser and also greater scaup. And some other specialties along the river. So we get tundra swans coming down and spending lots of time here in the winter. And in the fall, we had these 3 redneck phalaropes fly by us. So that was a big thrill along the river. But now let's look at some different places in Ontario. So if we go further north from the Peace Bridge in Buffalo, about a 4-hour drive, we'll get to Algonquin Provincial Park, one of my favorite places to bird in Ontario. The winter can be really good for birds. You can get the northern finches, spruce grouse, boreal chickadees, and other specialties. And don't forget about the mammals too, because it can be really productive for moose and some other animals as well. But it's also beautiful in the summer. There's nothing more special than taking a canoe ride along one of the rivers or lakes and seeing some of the breeding birds like winter wren. Blackburnian warblers, so a number of warblers breed in that area. Swamp sparrow. And now I'm going to take you to one of my favorite places to bird in Ontario. Well, on this planet, I have to say. When May rolls around, I have to spend some time at Peely and not only see some really spectacular birds, but a lot of my friends end up there as well. So it's really a great social event as well. And it's about a 4.5-hour drive from the Peace Bridge if you take the scenic route. It is a premier birding location in Canada, and it really affords some beautiful opportunities to see some spectacular birds like the scarlet tanager. On a good migratory day, you can see 20 plus species of warblers easily, and often great looks. These birds happen to fall out on a large migration day, and the temperatures were a bit cool, so we were able to get some really beautiful shots of Kirkland's warbler, a very difficult bird to see, and this Kentucky warbler. And you get some unusual sightings like this least bittern sitting in a tree at the tip of Point Pelee. The feature of Point Pelee is that it's a large landmass that sticks into Lake Erie from the southern shore. So from the northern shore, sorry. And so the birds are attracted to it. If they're migrating at night and there's some kind of weather event, or they change their minds about migrating, then they end up at the tip of Point Pelee. And there can actually be some really spectacular reverse migration events as well, where the birds actually turn around and go back. And it's quite magical if you go into the wetland areas, and you can hear birds singing like this northern water thrush, which is beautiful. And then there's always some surprises. So one day we got all 3 nightjars in the park on one day. But the best shot for me was when this common nighthawk decided to yawn. And so I got a picture of his mouth wide open. And you could see how easily it is for him to collect a lot of insects as he's flying around at night. And one of my most recent lifers was there too, this Chuck Will's widow, and you can see the views that we got of this amazing bird. So we're looking forward to seeing you. Come and visit us in Ontario. Thanks, Jay.
Thanks, Marcy. It was good to listen to you and see your stories. We miss you too. And we look forward to seeing you soon. That was a great thing. The Niagara region is such a starting point for so many destinations. I mean, you come here spring, summer, fall, winter, and start here and go to these great places. So thanks. Our next speaker is Tom Kerr. He's Buffalo Audubon, which is one of our prime sponsors for this event. And Tom is a great birder that knows, among other things, gulls. He knows a lot of things about birds, more than anybody I know. And Tom, why don't you take your program from here? Thank you.
Thanks, Jay. So what I want to talk about today is birding at Niagara Falls. And Niagara Falls is a special place to a lot of people, but it's close to where I grew up. If I'm ever traveling and people ask where I'm from, I always say I'm from like right between Buffalo and Niagara Falls. So as far as a birding destination, wintertime is the best for Niagara Falls. And if you're going to go to Niagara Falls, what you're going to see above the falls and in the rapids is large groups of roosting gulls. And when you look at them quickly, what you're going to see is mostly herring gulls, ring-billed gulls. So most of the ones across the middle here are the herring gulls. Down below here, we have some ring-billed gulls. Back here, we have a great blackback gull. And those are all pretty typical to see for most of the late fall, winter, early spring. But what we're looking for at Niagara Falls is not just big groups of herring gulls. It's for the special gulls mixed in, the Glaucous gull, the Iceland gulls, lesser blackback gull, and even some more rare species. So and further down the river, there's some good birding areas too, like the Whirlpool, Devil's Hole area, which are all parts of the lower gorge, the lower part of the river in Niagara Falls. They give you lots of good opportunities to see birds. And just like above the falls, what you're going to see are big groups of gulls just roosting, kind of hanging out. And when you start looking close, you might be able to find, like I said, some more interesting stuff. So down here we have almost all herring gulls, ring-billed gulls. Right up here, though, we have somebody a little different. If you notice, this gull here has all white wingtips viewed from here. So when we move on, what we're looking at here is an Iceland gull. And this is probably the most common of the more special gulls that we find at Niagara Falls. So when you're looking at a big group of herring gulls or ring-billed gulls or whatever, what you want to start looking for is the ones with the white wings, the white wingtips here. And so I like pictures like this. I like it when I'm looking at gulls and it looks like they're looking back at me. It's like one group of birds that always feels like I'm looking at you, they're looking at me, they're kind of paying attention, probably wondering what I'm doing. But this Iceland Gull here, you'll notice paler overall, the mantle on its back, and its primaries are kind of dusky gray here in comparison to this herring gull who's sound asleep over here. Has the dark black primaries with the white spots. Here we have the gray tips. And with Iceland gulls, there's a lot of variation. There's 3 separate types or subspecies. This one here is the Kumlines subspecies. If you can't see the wingtips, what you start looking for is the dark eyes, the smaller bill. They have pink legs, just like herring gulls. Get this guy looking at us here. But in a group, it can be hard to pick out, especially if they're all standing next to each other, packed in tight. They all tend to face the wind. So if the wind's blowing at you, when you're looking at them, they're all going to be facing away. Or if the wind's blowing at your back and you're looking at the gulls, they're all going to be facing you. So sometimes it's hard. You can't see the wingtips. You got to learn to look for other features like the dark eyeballs, the smaller bill, leg colors. But the best thing to always see is the wingtips here. Here we have another one looking back over its shoulder at us, the dark eye, the smaller bill. You can see some of the wingtips here. This pattern is different from all the other herring gulls that we see, which generally have dark wingtips with small white spots. Here we have one that has almost all white wingtips. So that is the typical Iceland gull. Still has the dark eye. You can't see its bill here. Nothing to compare it to nearby, but its mantle is lighter. Here we have the Thayer's gull, which is no longer its own species. It has been lumped into Iceland gull as a subspecies of Iceland gull. So if you had Thayer's gull on your life list, one day you woke up and looked at eBird and you were down a number, and Thayer's gull has been declared a subspecies of Iceland gull, which when you see all the variation and how similar they can be, probably makes a lot of sense to a lot of people. So I joke about it when I'm leading tours. It's like, oh, I'm so glad they lumped Thayer's gull in with Iceland gull, because now I don't have to try to find them for everybody, because they can be difficult. But this one looks most like a herring gull. You have the dark speckled head. You have the dark eye, which would stick out in the smaller bill, but its wingtips look very similar to a herring gull. Up here we have a Kumlines Iceland gull again. Its wingtips are hidden, but you can see from the dark bill, or I'm sorry, the dark eye and the smaller bill. If we got to look at the wingtips, it might be the Glaucoides Iceland gull, or it might be Kumlines. It's tough to tell without seeing the wingtips. So moving on from Iceland gull, we would look for Glaucous gull. And this is one of my favorites, actually. They're just so gigantic. Here we have an immature, moving on, Glaucous gull. And this picture was taken by a friend of mine, and it's one of my favorites. It is fun to see like all the different gulls just kind of together doing their own thing. They'll sit together and they'll go off. They have different feeding strategies. They'll roost in different spots. A lot of times in this picture, it doesn't go along with what I say. You find the Iceland gulls with herring gulls, and you find the Glaucous gulls where you see other great blackback gulls, the other big gull that we have out here. So this is at Devil's Hole on the Roosting Rocks, kind of in a very fast part of the river. You'll find gulls hunting there, but they'll stop and hang out. This Glaucous gull is probably just waiting for something to steal or something that's dead to wash up so that it can grab on that. It's not an active hunter. Here's an adult Glaucous gull above Niagara Falls. Very big. Their wings are a little shorter, so you don't have the big primary projection beyond the tail. Light overall. When you see a Glaucous gull in a group of herring gulls, they stand out. They're very big. So here we have a Glaucous gull, the short white wingtips, towering over these herring gulls. This little ringbill gull down here looks tiny. The great blackback gull doesn't look as big standing next to a Glaucous gull. The great blackback gull is the biggest gull in the world. The Glaucous is probably a close second. Another Glaucous gull mixed in with herring gulls. Pale pink legs, just like a herring gull. They're a little harder to pick out, especially at a distance. Here's an immature great blackback gull. So you can compare the size with them. It's about the same size. They're very big and impressive when you see them. They just tower right over all the other gulls. And when they're so bright white like this and so light, they seem to be bigger. They don't have the contrast the other gulls have, like a great blackback gull has. Glaucous gulls just look like monsters to me. Here's another one. Mixing with herring gulls above Niagara Falls. So next I want to show lesser blackback gulls. And this is kind of like a Niagara Falls specialty. There aren't very many places in New York State where you can go and expect to see a lesser blackback gull. And when I I lived in New York City for a while when I first moved back to Buffalo, and I went to Niagara Falls looking for a lesser blackback gull. I couldn't believe how many were there. There was probably a dozen. And it's just a bird that's hard to find in New York State, not very easy to find in the Northeast. I had never seen one outside of Niagara Falls until I saw one at Niagara Falls. And they're a little smaller than a herring gull. They're the only black-backed gull, generally, at Niagara Falls that has a speckled head. If you see a great blackback gull, their head's going to be completely white. So besides the size difference, a great blackback gull is much bigger. But if you're trying to just, sitting by itself, anytime you see one with the speckled head, it's going to probably be a lesser blackback gull. It's not completely black like a blackback gull either. It's a pretty easy one to pick out. It's nice to see from above the falls. You might be able to find, 6 to a dozen in a trip. So it's a nice bird to find around here. Like I said, they're just hard to find everywhere else. They have bright yellow legs. They'd also stand out with that. So fortunately at Niagara Falls, we've been really lucky to have seemingly a yearly visitor, the Slate of Actical, which are from Asia, Japan, Alaska, the Aleutians. You would see them there, but we have one that seems to be returning every year to Niagara Falls. And if you think about it, it's not that far for this bird that's nesting in the Arctic to get lost and end up in the Western Hemisphere instead of the Eastern Hemisphere, just by going over the pole. So this bird probably at some point of its life went over the pole and just can't figure out its way back. So it's been hanging out with a group of herring gulls that comes back to Niagara Falls every year. Probably. That's my guess anyways. But it looks very similar to a lesser blackback gull. It's a little bit bigger and chunkier, but it's got pink legs. It's got these bubblegum pink legs and kind of like this smoky eyeshadow effect. And when you see them, lesser blackback gulls don't have the white spots on the primaries that are, so obvious as the slaty-back gull, but also what we call here the tertial crescent. So when its wings are folded, the tertiary feathers kind of all line up and make this nice wide, half moon shape on the edge of its wing. So this is a bird that we've had people coming from all over New York State, all over the Northeast coming for. There was if you follow the birding groups on Facebook, there were a bunch of people here that were looking for a slaty-back gull, couldn't find it. And then on Facebook, there was a Ross's gull, I think in Connecticut. And everyone was like, I'm here for a slaty-back gull. And there's a Ross's gull in Connecticut where they lived. So that was kind of funny to see. They came all the way to Niagara Falls, from different parts of the country to see these birds. Here's another real good picture that shows that wide tertial crescent. It's tough to see you see it in the field guys, but it shows the bill is bicolored, so it is lighter underneath. So last I want to show this gull. This is a gull I actually found yesterday preparing for Buffalo Audubon tour at the Devil's Hole State Park, and I climbed down into the gorge and I found this very odd looking gull. It's tiny little beady eye. It's the size of a herring gull, and it's got bright yellow legs. And I just don't know what this is. Some people have suggested it's just a herring gull that has abnormal pigments. Probably true. That seems to be the consensus. But you can dream. It is Niagara Falls, and we get a lot of strange gulls here. Any gull that ends up in the Northeast eventually seems to end up in Niagara Falls as the winter moves on. The Great Lakes start to freeze. They're pushed into the Niagara River where the water doesn't freeze. So who knows what this could be? We were all having a good time looking at of Europe, yellow-legged gulls and Caspian gulls, and we did not relocate it today, but it has been hanging around. Hopefully we can find it, get some better pictures of it. This was taken through my binoculars. I was not equipped with a camera yesterday. So Niagara Falls is a really fun place to bird in the wintertime, looking for gulls. I know people think of gulls as just like, oh, those just annoying sky rats in the parking lot stealing your French fries. And I tell people, no, gulls are some of the best birds in the world. If I died and had to come back as a bird, I'd pick a gull. I'd come back as a gull. They're, you know, I really like this time of year in the wintertime. You know, it's gull season. So back to you, Jay.
Well, birding in the Niagara always brings us interesting mysteries, and I want to thank you, Tom, for bringing that mystery to our attention. And thank you, Tom and Marcy, for sharing your material with us tonight. You can see more about Marcy, Tom, and Jay on our website. We're going to be giving presentations, and we look forward to having you come to our event February 12th, 13th, and 14th on our website, birdsontheniagara.org. And I just want to say one last thing. We've learned tonight, we learn all the time, that birds really connect us. Now, we know that in our region, we have birds that come from the Arctic. We have birds that go to the Amazon, Central America, South America, the Caribbean, even where you people are in Florida. We have birds that connect us because they come to our physical locations and they travel between our physical locations. And we also know that birds connect us as humans. And some of our programs are about how we as a human society are connected by these natural things and by conservation and by trying to protect the earth. And we have places like the Niagara River corridor, which is our place to protect. It's our job, it's our stewardship. And we invite you to come and experience this with us. And if you're doing the same thing, we applaud you. And so look forward to seeing you all come to Birds on the Niagara, February 12th, 13th, and 14th. Thanks.